and welcome to this guitar lesson for Why You No Love Me by John Mayer, taken from the album Sob Rock, which is awesome, by the way. Just in case you're interested, I did a first listen of Sob Rock just the other day. I'll stick a link in the description. I've also got a bunch of John Mayer lessons on this channel. So on to the actual lesson itself. We're going to cover all of the chord parts. Then in the next section, we're going to cover all of the lead parts, including the guitar solo, which will be at the end. So without further ado, let's get zoomed in. Okay, so starting with the chord parts then, as a nice handy reference, I put the chords all on screen for you right now, so you can come back to those and just look at the chord chart if you need to. Let's get into it. The first bar, we have a D minor 6 chord, okay, and it sounds like this. But how do we do this? We take the pinky of the fretting hand and plonk it on the 5th of the A. We take the 3rd finger of the fretting hand and plonk it on the 3rd of the D. The 1st finger goes on the 2nd of the G string, and we have an open B. And we just play those 4 notes in sequence. Alternate picking with the picking hand, and then we come back to the G string for that final note. Then in our next bar, we've got those same first 4 notes again, but we finish it off with... The vital thing to remember here is that you have to hold on to the rest of the chord as much as you can, but only release the first finger. So you've still got your pinky on the 5th of the A, you've still got your 3rd finger on the 3rd of the D, but then when it comes to playing that last sequence, you're going to take off the 1st finger and play the 2nd of the B, an open B, and then the 2nd of the G. So it should all blend together like this. Just be very careful when you're releasing your 1st finger from the G string, because there's a tendency to pull off by accident and get a note that you don't need. We don't need a G note in D minor 6. Into the next bar, and we have an A add 9 with a C sharp in the bass, which sounds like this. So from the previous chord, we just shift our pinky down a fret to the 4th fret of the A. Then we put our 1st finger on the 2nd of the D, and we join the 2nd finger to the 2nd of the G, and then we have an open B string again. And we just play those 4 in sequence. And then come back to the G string again. And then in the next bar, the first 4 notes are the same, but we have that. And as before, we hold on to the chord as much as possible, but this time we're not going to use the 1st finger, we're going to use the 2nd finger, because that's going to allow us to keep the pinky on the A string and the 1st finger on the D string. So we play those first 4 notes, and then we can release the 2nd finger from the G string down onto the B at the 2nd fret, then an open B, and then the 2nd fret of the G. In the next bar, again, we shift our pinky down again from the previous chord. So our pinky is now on the 3rd of the A. Then we take our 3rd finger to the 2nd of the D. Then we take our 3rd finger to the 2nd of the G. And again, once again, we've got that open B. We play those 4 in a row. And then come back to the G string. And then in the next bar, again, the first 4 notes are the same. But then we get this little run. So as before, you've got to hold on to the chord as much as possible before you do the run, so it all rings together like this. Okay, but what's happening there? I'm playing the 1st of the B with my 1st finger. Then I'm hammering on and pulling off from the open B to the 1st to the open B again. So we have, and then I'm going to pluck the 2nd of the G and the open B. So altogether that run. Okay, and then immediately after that, we go to an open E major chord. Okay, so it's quite a quick shift. So your changes will have to be on point there. And from that bar with the E major chord, we're going to play the E major chord, and then we're going to do an upstroke on the 2 open E's. So 1 and 2 and then we have and 4, but this is an E sus4 chord, so your pinky's going to have to drop temporarily here, this pinky, okay, right here, it's going to have to drop to the 2nd of the G instead of the 1st. So you can still hold on to the E major as is, but the pinky then comes down to form E sus4. So they're your 2 chords. So you have E major, E sus4, and then in the next bar you're back to E major, and you're just going to pick out those strings as highlighted on the tab. Then we get to the verse at 18 seconds, and it is the same for that first part of the verse, as you can see, except we don't have that run, because obviously when there's vocals you don't want to be sticking runs all over the place because it kind of gets in the way, right? So that run from bar 6 isn't there in bar 14. Then we're at 38 seconds, and the verse, the first 4 bars are as before, these 4 bars here, but then at 48 seconds he switches to an F sharp minor add 11, which is this chord. And the way you're going to play that is you're going to bring your thumb over to the 2nd of the low E. That thumb is also going to be muting the A string, the tip of the thumb. Then you're going to put the 3rd finger onto the 4th of the D string. So far the 2 notes. Then your 1st finger is going to go to the 2nd of the G. And an open B. Now this bit's a bit tricky because for the next 3 notes you're going to have to basically take your 1st finger from being in an arched position to being in a flat position, so you can get that very last note. Do you notice the flattening of the 1st finger? If you didn't, go back and watch it again. Okay, very important to be able to do that. John Petrucci, I think, refers to that as a roll, a barrel roll, I'm sure. Okay, so we just play the first 6 notes holding the chord. Then we drop that 1st finger to be flat. Then we go into the next bar. And then as soon as we get to the B, we go back into the arched position with the 1st finger again. I'm actually waiting for the right time to lift the finger so all the notes are ringing properly. Alright, so altogether those 2 bars, a little bit tricky, but we can do this. Then in the next bar we just have a B major bar chord starting on the A string. Now I play mine by using the pinky to bar the D, G and B, but this version of the chord also completely acceptable. And your rhythm is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And you're going to go to a standard E major chord and go down, up, down, up, down, down. Alrighty. And after that, we get to the chorus. And the chorus comes in at 58 seconds. And the first thing to note is the strumming pattern is the same all the way through. So using the first chord, the D, as an example, it's down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up. Okay, so once you can do that strumming pattern for 1 bar, you know that you can do it for all of them continuously. It's the same one. So, our first chord is a standard D major chord. Okay, I'm just going to let you rely on the chord diagrams for the rest of these chords now and just give you any pointers. If you don't know how to read chord diagrams, there'll be a video in the description that teaches you how to read those. Very, very important and pretty basic for guitarists. So definitely get on that if you don't know how to do it. So we've got a D with that same strumming pattern, down, down, up, down, up. Then it goes to D minor. Then we have an A chord, this particular version on barring 3 strings instead of using 3 fingers. Then we go to F minor 7, and the version John Mayer probably plays is with the thumb on the 2nd of the E, the 3rd finger on the 4th of the D, and then the 1st finger barring the 2nd of the G and B strings. So you've got... Then in the next bar, we've got a standard D chord again, then it goes to a standard E major chord, and then an A chord, and then we go to an F major. So they've taken the major chord, the 6, it's called a 6 major, because normally in the key of A, F sharp would be a minor chord, but he's made it a major chord just to build the intensity. And again, it's using that thumb on the 2nd of the E, 3rd finger on the 4th of the D, 2nd finger on the 3rd of the G this time, and then the 1st finger on the 2nd of the B. Then after that bar, we go to B minor bar chord on the A string. Then again, open E major shape, open A shape, back to F sharp major again. Then we've got B minor, and then E sus4 to E. So we have down, down, up, down, up, and then back to A again. So at that point, you've actually learned almost all of the parts apart from the very end. So what happens at 1 minute 38, you've got the verse that goes around 2 more times. There are some background lead parts we're going to look at in just a second. Then the chorus repeats at 2 minutes 17. Then you've got the bridge and the solo, which we're also going to look at in a second. But then you've got the very end part. And those end chords, very kind of dramatic. It's a flat 6, flat 7, 1 progression, if you're interested, okay? It's an F major. So we've got a thumb on the 1st of the low E, and then we've got fingers 3, 2, 1 on 3, 2, 1 of the D, G, B. And then all we do is we take that F and we move it up 2 frets, and that gives us the G major. And we finish on A. So all together that end bit. Down, down, up, down, up, A. Very, very nice. Let's get into those lead parts, shall we? Okay, so we're going to start with the intro, and you will, of course, need a slide. Here's my glass slide here, and I've got it on my 3rd finger. Just a very, very quick lesson in slide if you've not done slide before. You want your slide to always be on top of the fret of the note that you're going for. Obviously, your finger comes just before the fret, but your slide wants to be on top of it. Generally, good practice to do a bit of vibrato on a lot of your slide notes. Okay. And you're also going to keep the 2 fingers behind the slide on the strings behind the slide so that they're not like this, basically. Because that's what happens. You know, you get a nice clean sound. Especially when it comes to distortion, because you'll have all sorts of horrible string noise. Okay, let's get into it. So our first 3 bars have exactly the same slide lick in them. And that is when you get to the and of 2, 1 and 2 and. Okay. You've got a grace note slide from 10 to 12, and then you go from 12 back down to 10. And that's all one movement. With the right hand, the way I'm picking these notes is I'm using my middle finger to pluck the string I want to pluck, and then the 2 fingers either side I'm using to mute the 2 strings either side. Okay, if you can just see that. So I'd be plucking this string here, but muting the other 2 here with the other 2 fingers. All right. So we do that movement 3 times. All right. And then in bars 7 and 8, we've got some natural harmonics at the 12th. Do those with the pinky finger, but not the slide. Then in the first part of the verse, those slide parts remain the same. And the next part of the verse, coming in at 38 seconds, we've got the same thing again for 3 bars, this. Then when we get to bar 15, now this part isn't taken from the same guitar part that plays the slide. I've just put this in here. It's something sitting very, very far back in the mix, but it goes like this. Okay, kind of tricky when you've got a slide on your 3rd finger as well, but it's good practice. So how do we do that? We take our pinky and it goes on the 13th of the D. And then we take our 2nd finger and it goes on the 11th of the G. And then we take our 1st finger and it goes on the 10th of the B. So you end up with a... So you basically end up with a B dominant 7th. So you include the bass. Okay. And then on the under 4, you've got a lick. Now you're going to have to get your hand into a funky position here just because the slide will be in the way a little bit. But your 2nd finger is going to bend the 11th up to the 13th and then back down and release to the 9th of the G string. All together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... And then on the final beat of that bar, that's where you have the slide bit that takes you into the chorus. All right, so the chorus comes in at 58 seconds, and as we've just learned, we've got that note previously, and then we end up here on the 15th of the B string. Then we slide from 10 to 14 of the B string. And then we slide from 10 to 15 of the B string again. And then we slide from 12 to 14, but it's quite a quick slide. And then in the next bar after that, we're actually not using the slide at all. On beat 4, we play the 11th of the G with the 1st finger. And then we use the pinky to go to the 15th of the B. And then after that, we go from 9 to 14 on the B string with the slide. And then for the final slide lick of the chorus, we go from 17 down to 14. So now we can take the slide off because we don't need this for verse 2. Then we get into those beautiful Spanish sounding parts. That's why I've opted not to use a pick for this, but feel free to use a pick if you need to. So our first 2 bars go as follows: 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, so we're starting with the 3rd finger on the 9th of the G. Then the 1st finger goes to the 7th of the G. Pinky goes up to the 10th of the B. 3rd finger to the 10th of the G. And then for the next bar, you bring that 3rd finger down a position and you use it to do the bend. You bend 9 up to 10 and back down, and then hit 9 again. And then 2 7s with the 1st finger. Then our next 2 bars go like this: 3 and 4 and 1. So we're going to take the 1st finger from the 7th of the G down to the 6th. And the pinky stretches up to the 10th of the B string. And the 3rd finger goes to the 9th of the G. 1st finger to the 7th of the G. And then 1st finger down to the 6th of the G. Then our next 2 bars go like this: 3 and 4 and... So we take the 3rd finger to the 11th of the D string. Then we're going to bring the 1st finger to the 9th of the B. And then the 2nd finger to the 10th of the B. and the third finger to the 11th of the G, and then the first finger goes to the 9th of the G, third finger to the 11th of the D, first finger to the 9th of the G, and then in our next two bars we have 3 and 4 and 1, 2. So the second finger goes to the 9th of the D string, and at the same time the first finger goes to the 8th of the G. And then for that final part on the G string, it's 9, hammer onto 11 with the first and third finger, and then first finger on the 9th of the G. Excelente. Now we want to get into the guitar solo. The first main idea of our solo, played slowly, goes as follows. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, what's going on there? Well, in that first bar of the solo, we've got 10, 12 and 13th of the B string, but they're played staccato. Okay, so short, snappy notes. It's going to give you that Mayer-y kind of groove, / Dire Straits, because it's a very Dire Straits Mark Knopfler solo. All right, you're going to play the 10th with the first finger on the B string at the 10th, the 12th with the third, and then the 13th with the pinky. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the 12 with the third finger, still on the B string, bend up to the 13th and then back down. And then you're going to use the first finger to play 2 10th frets on the B string. And you're going to add a bit of vibrato there. Okay? Then in the next phrase, we've got... And what you do there, you're going to take the third finger to the 15th of the B, and you're going to bend up to the 17th. Then you're just going to play the 15th without bending it. And then the first finger comes to the 13th to play that note. And then you go back to the 15th with the third finger, and you bend up twice, but you only pick the first one. Now you're going to have to stop that bend at the top by muting with this hand here. Watch this. That hand there stops the sound, okay? And then you take the pinky to the 17th of the high E, and I like to play this one with my middle finger because it allows me to really spank that string like he does in the recording. He could well be using a pick as well, but either way, you'll get a nice spanky tone out of the finger, which is what we're looking for. Then our next phrase goes like this. How do we do that? We use the third finger to bend the 15th of the B up to the 17. Then we just play the 15 on its own. And then we use the second finger to play the 14th. Then we bring that same second finger in the next bar, we bring that second finger to the G string at the 14th, and then 14th to the D, and then back to the 14th of the G. Bit of vibrato. Then we take the third finger to the 16th of the G string, and we bend the 16th up to the 18th. And then we just play the 16th without bending it. And then the first finger to the 14th of the G. And then, again, we bend up twice, but we only pick the first one. And you're going to have to stop it with this hand again. Then we've got this lovely little phrase, which is a little simpler. So it goes like this. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. All right, so how are we going to do that one? So you're going to bend 2 14s in a row, and you're going to pick both of them, 14 up to 15. Okay, and there's a lot of bends here, so be careful with the accuracy. And then we take the third finger that we've just used and we bend the 12th of the B up to the 14th, twice in a row. And again, there's vibrato on both of those. Then we take the third finger to the 14th of the G, and we do 2 more bends, 14 to 16 on the G. And then the last 2 notes are just the 14th of the G with the third finger twice in a row, with no bend. Then we take that third finger to the 12th of the high E. There is a bit of vibrato, but it's very quick when it's done at normal speed, so maybe don't worry too much about that. Then you've got a pre-bend at the 12th of the B. So you bend the 12th up to the 14th without playing it. You're pre-bending, there's no sound. So you just have to kind of know this by second nature. All right, you hold that pre-bend and then you release and then bend back up again. Starting at the top of the bend, release, back up again. Okay. And then finally, we've essentially got an F#7 arpeggio, okay? Lovely way to finish the solo, back into the final chorus. So how do we do that? First finger on the 2nd of the high E, pinky on the 5th of the B, first finger on the 2nd of the B, second finger on the 3rd of the G, and then third finger on the 4th of the D, first finger on the 2nd of the D, and then pinky on the 4th of the A. That puts you in the position to get the first finger to the 1st of the A, and then the second finger down to the 2nd of the A string. And that is almost everything. However, we do have one final lick that we have at the end, okay? Random lick at 3 minutes 23, and it sounds like this. So, for this random lick, third finger, 12th of the B, we pre-bend to the 14th. All right? Once we've found that 14th, we release down to the 12th, and then play the 10th of the B with the first finger. All right? Then we take that first finger down a fret to the 9th of the B. Then we bring the first finger up to the 11th of the G and play that. And then we use the third finger to bend the 14th up to the 15th of the B. Now on the recording, I may be wrong about this, but on the recording it sounds like he actually pre-bends that 14 very slightly. So you've actually got a quarter tone bend from 14 to 15. It's different to... Very difficult to do, as you can hear, if you're particularly sensitive to pitch. Okay, so thank you for listening to that lesson. Really do appreciate you sticking with me for the whole video. Don't forget to check out my Patreon page, where you can get some exclusive content on there in the form of sheet music, and you can make requests for different songs as well. And there's backing tracks on there and this kind of stuff. Thank you. See you later. Bye.